Hi there, this is going to be one of those topics that you probably won't code in this course, but it's one of the little topics theories that they want you to know about. And it's an important one for those going on into computer science. It's all about catching errors as your program runs, all types. So here we go. This will be a little 5, 6, 7 minute video, but you really do have to go to these classes and follow them along to really understand how it's working. But here's your overview. There's a Java class built in called exception. An exception is when there's some exception to your program running properly. And so it's basically an error. You guys are familiar with the index out of bounds exception. There's also some class cast exceptions that happen when you try to do bad casting. What I'm doing here is I've made my own exception by extending, and I've called it J exception. Now what J exception is I'm writing a little program that takes a student grade. If the grade is not a good number between 0 and 100, this is what's going to happen. J exception encountered, invalid grade parameter. Okay, it's going to print out. Okay, now this is the constructor. So when I make a J exception, this runs. Okay, and don't worry about this one right now. Now, grade finder. Grade finder, quick little class. Method called findGrade. It's going to send back pass or fail, but I know that the user may give some bad data. Rather than forcing them to enter good data, I'm just going to prove that these error checks work. And I'm going to say, if the number is bad, I'm going to throw a new J exception. Now you know this highlighted part creates a J exception object in memory. So it jumps here, runs the constructor, and that prints out. Okay, and that's basically that. You'll notice if your method is going to throw an exception, and throw is just a term somebody invented for Java, then up here in the method title, you must indicate this could throw a J exception error. If you don't put that in there, you're not allowed to throw down here. Now let's see this actually work. Here's my little run me program. I make a grade finder. I set a grade to a really bad number. And here I go. Hey grade finder, run findGrade with 555. It's going to jump up in here. 555 goes in. It's a bad number. It's going to throw a new J exception, which will jump here and run the constructor and print this bad message out. Let's see what happens. Ooh, look at that. Exception in thread happens. J exception encountered, invalid grade parameter. So see these red line errors, they aren't so much of a mystery. Somebody's coded them in because they've detected you're doing something bad or that you're not supposed to be doing. Now, some little interesting things. If I take this line, system exit 0, that line actually just exits the program entirely. So if you think the error is bad enough to just shut the program down, you can sneak that in there. And you can see it looks different. It gave the exception and then shut down. So it's a little bit different. Okay, system exit 0 means end the program. What else can we tell you here that's sort of neat? In my run me, you'll notice I did this, throws exception. If I take that out, I get a little underline here. Unreported exception must be caught or declared. One of the funny things with Java is if this method might throw an exception, then we know void main might throw an exception. So you also have to put the throws exception there. Now, there's a little out to this. And I know how you don't like all the little extra rules. But if you don't want to put that there, there's something else you can do. If you know an error might occur because of that method throws an exception on you, you can actually do this. You can say, try to run this method and catch any J exceptions. I'll just call it J. And if I do catch an exception occurring, I can say caught J exception. Should print out. What this does is it basically says run this method, and if it happens to encounter an exception, catch the exception and do this. So if the exception occurs, this code is going to run. So let's say this was a more sophisticated error, you could actually run some extra code now to try to fix the error or remedy the situation. Yeah, it's a lot of typing, but make a program work totally perfectly, that's the kind of stuff you have to do. So let's see what happens here. We know it's going to throw the exception, so it should catch it. And you'll see no red lines this time because we have the try and the catch. And that's just built into Java there. Caught the exception. Pretty cool. Now we're at 6 minutes. I'm going to show you one more little thing here just for those that like this sort of stuff. But I'm just going to go to my JException class here. You'll notice I had another constructor, JException, that took in a number. Value, up here, got set to the number. Okay, so just remember that part. Now I'm going to go to Grade Finder, and I'm going to say throw new exception X. So this time when I create that exception, it's going to jump to this class, and it's going to run this constructor. That number goes in and sets the value. So my JException has a variable built in it. And watch the fun you can do. Catch the exception. Caught exception. Bad number was J dot value. You see, when the exception occurs, it catches it and it nicknames it J. And I know every JException has a variable in it called value, which is the one the user entered. So when I give it a run this time, you can actually say, hey, bad number was 5555. This here knows information about the error if you want. So if this was file errors or math errors, you could actually figure out what the problem was and then try to fix it. So that's enough torture on this topic. Pop open the files, just follow along, see that they work, and you just have to have a little bit of an overview sense that this stuff exists. Thanks for watching.